Good evening, and thank you for joining us for Political Cipher with Q. I'm Quandra Gaines, your host, and today we're going to be having a conversation with Joesph Gaskins. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. How are you this lovely afternoon? You prepared for
Uh,
Thanksgiving?
I'm going to be cooking around 9 o'clock. I'm going to
Okay.
start my rows and things. So, Mr. Gaskins is the co-chairman of the Maryland Business Clergy Partnership. So we're gonna. I know that you've seen Joe on Political Cipher on a weekly basis, but we wanted to do a much more in-depth interview so that we can learn more about why he does what he does, what his history is with the business community is, the clergy community is, nonprofit organizations as well. So Joe, give us a background. Give us some of your background of the things that you've done in politics and business.
Yeah, I have been actively involved in business from a advocacy
Mm-hmm.
since 1981, starting in Washington D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
where I opened up my first and the first architectural engineering and construction management. Let
Mm-hmm.
me put that in because at the time, construction management was a new way of doing business, and no other firm, minority firm, was in that particular business. So we opened up in DC in '81, and I joined the DC Contractors Association in '81 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with the city back in that time, there was Marion Barry was the mayor of DC. And DC was vibrant, very
Mm-hmm.
vibrant. There was a lot of uh, opportunities in the city. And then you had, he was a mayor who was committed to helping uh, black companies.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a tremendous job with a lot of people who are still benefiting from what he did today. I want to say this: we gave him his 69th birthday
Mm-hmm.
party. It was one of the best parties I've given for any political person out there. He was instrumental in creating BET, Bob
Mm-hmm.
Johnson. And then at that time, Bob Johnson was in bankruptcy, and he provided Bob with a opportunity to put cable television.
Mm-hmm.
Gave him a contract, and Bob took that contract and he went from there and developed BET and moved on. Now he's a great person.
Mm-hmm.
He spent a lot of time helping minority business people, and he helped us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have done over a period of time
Mm-hmm.
is use that to propel me to my next step. From there, I got involved as a business person.
Mm-hmm.
I became involved with different advocacy groups
Mm-hmm.
uh, during that time. The Black Chamber, the Black Business Roundtable,
Mm-hmm.
along with the Coalition for Black Economic Development, along with the uh, NB National Business League, uh, numerous boards, board of Global Development Services for Youth,
Mm-hmm.
acting chair of the Community First Coalition for nonprofits. I was an honorary base commander at Andrews Air Force Base. And I was a member of the Minority Advisory Board for the Prince George County School System and a member of the Prince George County Revitalization Task Force.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, in all those positions, I was helping and assisting individuals
Mm-hmm.
to move to their levels. And my most rewarding stop was when I ran actually, we did the first all purpose business incubator in
Mm-hmm.
Prince County. And that incubator we did with the state of Maryland, committing themselves to facilitating a partnership. They provided
Mm-hmm.
about 30,000. We provided about 1.5 million. dollars to put in the first incubator that housed 30 businesses, provide directly loans
Mhm.
to 35 business people, payday loans,
Mhm.
provide business opportunities, train those individuals on how
Mhm.
a business. We provided them access to loans. We provide them access to political uh, individuals who were important to the success of their businesses.
Mhm.
And when they couldn't pay their rent, we gave them rent subsidies to cover their rent for years. Conference room space, free conference room space, not only to those businesses, but to business in Prince George County totally. So, I've been actively involved from a nonprofit perspective for a long time in the community.
Mhm.
Now, how did I become involved with the Maryland Business Clergy?
Mhm.
Initially, the organization that I spent a lot of time developing was the Prince George County Contractors and Business Association because the
Mhm.
Prince George County Contractors and Business Association was a much needed organization to help to organize businesses in the state of Maryland. And at the
Mhm.
same time that I was doing that, you had Arnold Jolivet and you had Robert Clay in
Mhm.
Baltimore City who were main principals who were working with us to make sure that we service black contractors. You also
Mhm.
had Pless Jones was there. Pless was running a NT2T as well. But the makers and shakers who were not who were not afraid to make moves were Robert Clay and Arnold Jolivet. Now we had major senatorial help in Baltimore City because
Mhm.
at that time we had Senator Bucky Trotter. We had people like Tiger Davis,
Mhm.
who was in politics in Baltimore City,
Mhm.
uh, and we had at that time, of course, the mayor Kurt Smoke was a mayor, and we were actively campaigning in Baltimore City for him. And we went on and we put in place the MBE program,
Mhm.
and that MBE program covered the entire state, but
Mhm.
the counties who benefited the most from that were two of the black counties, Prince George County and Baltimore City. Let me put it that way. There is really 24 jurisdictions, 23 counties, and one city, Baltimore City. And the largest counties are Montgomery today, Montgomery County, Prince George County, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, and then Baltimore City.
Mhm.
But Baltimore City was the powerhouse, and Prince George County was a growing community,
Mhm.
which was feeding off of individuals moving from Washington D.C. to
Mhm.
Prince George County. There was a transition, and I was involved heavily in that transition during that particular time. I worked with an organization, NAACP,
Mhm.
which was a powerful organization at that time. Um, and I also worked with another organization that was called the Coalition for Black Economic Development, which was a statewide organization. And we effectively changed politics at an earliest stage in the rural communities. Anne Arundel
Mhm.
County, Prince George County, we're in St. Mary's, Montgomery County. We organized and we met on a monthly basis.
Mhm.
And we put the first African American into office, Wayne
Mhm.
K. Curry, during that time. And we only had one uh, black senator. That was, again, I said Bucky Trotter, but before Bucky, but there was Tommy Broadwater,
Mhm.
was a senator. And Tommy, at the second black senator, was Senator who was from a 26 legislative district, Gloria Lawler.
Mhm.
We went from, in Prince George County, a county that had very minimal participation that a county that had minority representation across the board. And it was a tremendous opportunity politically, but it wasn't quite the opportunity that business people expected. So the business organizations had a serious responsibility, and every day nothing was given to us. Number one, we didn't have the money in the black community
Mm-hmm.
to elect our officials. So other individuals elected our officials and they took control of our officials.
Mm-hmm.
We had a powerful senator, Mike Miller,
Mm-hmm.
who seized the opportunity and knew that the black community was vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, and did not have political conditioning. We knew at that, he knew that that particular point in time that it took political savvy
Mm-hmm.
or people to cross over lines and support each other, black people.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a, I wouldn't say a rift, there was competition between Baltimore City
Mm-hmm.
and Prince George County, and they were fighting for power in those areas. So while we were working to create unity and to create economic power, our
Mm-hmm.
political leadership were working to get plum jobs in the General Assembly. So
Mm-hmm.
there's, I would say, it was a healthy competition. It was not a progressive competition. Great that the positions are open, but you're not working with each other. So we worked extensively with Arnold and other individuals in the community, Robert Clay, to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that from an economic perspective that we were doing everything to empower black people in the state of Maryland. So in order for us to do that, we didn't necessarily uh, concentrate on just one area of expertise, or we knew that even though you had the expertise as business people, you didn't if you didn't have the politics,
Mm-hmm.
you really couldn't make anything happen. So numerous projects were born,
Mm-hmm.
and on those numerous projects, there was a lack of minority participation on those particular projects, and we didn't have any advocacy that
Mm-hmm.
we could count on to fight our battles because our political people were jockeying for positions, and often, depending on major prime contractors who were not African American, would fund their political races for them.
Mm-hmm.
So black individuals really had no power economically to control anything. Only those powerful thinking, and I don't want to say not political motivated, but motivated because they knew that you could not win this battle in economic disparity by having a independent group of business people, black business people, fight without a unified force coming from the political end. But mind you, that's the easy thing to say versus do. Because if you individuals run and they get tied into a structure that's led by somebody as strong as Mike Miller, what happens is he controls those individuals' minds. He tells them where to go and what to do. And that's what was taking place. So, Quandra, what we had to do in
Mm-hmm.
that particular process was very, very unusual. And it's a fight, unfortunately, that we're still fighting today. I want to say this since 1777, right? 1777 to 2022, we finally had elected the first African American governor to the state of Maryland. That's phenomenal in itself. 62 governors have gone and come in the state of Maryland, and we finally get the first African American. Why I applaud that. I would say that it's overdue. I'm appreciative of the fact that the state of Maryland is not a minority controlled state. So therefore, you need the support from a multitude of individuals, diverse individuals, to make it all happen. Uh, and in this initial race, no one even believed that, especially individuals in Prince George County. They didn't believe that we could take a African American uh, person
Mm-hmm.
and move them into leadership, and they could win.
Mm-hmm.
And they certainly didn't expect that you could take a young, brilliant uh, Rhodes Scholar with
Mm-hmm.
no political experience and move him into leadership of a great state of Maryland without having any political background whatsoever. But I am elated that this Thanksgiving and this Christmas, we're able to say that we are now putting forth that team that's called a transition team
Mm-hmm.
that's diverse and that will make a difference. And as Westmore states, leave no one behind. And I'm elated that we all in Baltimore City and Prince George County have now realized it's going to take all of us to make a difference in this great state. But if we're able to do that, we'll make a difference and we'll be a very proud state, not just African Americans and the president, lieutenant governor, who's from India. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's in itself is an accomplishment in itself. It's the first time that we've had two people of color who are now controlling the state of Maryland. But not because it's overdue, because it definitely is overdue, but because they were the most qualified individuals that showed in the elections. So I'll stop there and I'll let you respond with anything that you might want to ask me, and then I'll pick up and I'll go further.
Okay. With all your experience and knowledge, why do you think that it's important to advocate for Black businesses in Maryland, specifically in Baltimore City and Prince George's County?
I will say this: in order for a any community, and this has been proven throughout the uh, the world,
Mm-hmm.
definitely throughout the country, and definitely in the state of Maryland, that ethnic groups um, devote time and attention to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they create a powerhouse
Mm-hmm.
of business people that's able to employ, that's able to not only employ, but also to create legacy wealth and to leave something back for individuals, whether they're family or whether they're other African Americans who are part of that particular business structure.
Mm-hmm.
We as Black people in the state of Maryland have no legacy wealth. We just don't have it. We are
Mm-hmm.
the first generations of legacy wealth. I mean, we were good to create, and I think Donnie was beneficial, but I don't think he's doing this anymore. His dad had the was a mortician, so he had the funeral homes,
Mm-hmm.
and those probably our greatest assets
Mm-hmm.
that we could have, and we could stay in business doing those because it was a business that basically lent itself to just that. Very seldom did you would see a Black person going to a white mortician
Mm-hmm.
to get services. And white morticians definitely were not going to come into the Black community to do that. And very few Black morticians would go into the white community and do that. So it
Mm-hmm.
was understood that that piece of business that you had, you could take that particular business and you could make it worked for legacy wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Other businesses were less fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the soul food facilities that our families started and were so instrumental in doing this because they had the techniques. I don't know whether we have the techniques. I don't know whether we have the tenacity, but I do know this is that I can go into many Korean facilities and get the
Mm-hmm.
same soul food that my mother used to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And they've now begun to take over that particular industry. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody's always looking. It's not that they personally want to take, they go for the weakest link. And the same thing with black hair products. You'll find that a lot of the black hair uh, products is sold in our communities are not owned by black Americans. They're not at all. They're owned by Korean Americans. Those are the simple things. We used to own dry cleaners. We're
Mm-hmm.
no longer owners of dry cleaners. We used to own liquor stores. We're no longer owners of liquor stores in any magnitude. We may have one or two, but we're not in that game. And every major industry here that's created is created for the large business person. I'll give you an example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when when gaming started, we were advocates and we were pushing for major participation uh, on a state level at all of the 6 locations that were designated for slots gaming,
Mm-hmm.
and we couldn't get any of them to be minority owned.
Mm-hmm.
We got small slices of pieces, but not enough to control the net worth or to make decisions beyond basically being a person who was at the table in a boardroom that someone else made all the decisions. Now, these are the industries that the state can make happen. They can do it. Taxpayers' money making this happen, putting in infrastructure, putting in hundreds of millions of dollars into projects that will facilitate the economic success of that particular business. But do you have African Americans in ownership? So focusing on those particular issues and how you get a person into legacy wealth becomes
Mm-hmm.
a big, huge portion of what we have done through the Maryland Business Clergy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked at what's happening with sports betting,
Mm-hmm.
another industry, well, not as large as the betting, gaming facilities, but because the gaming facilities got off and they had clearly an unfair advantage of taking place, of us in taking place and coming out of the gate, having investors, they got one up, and it was impossible for almost impossible. Nothing is impossible, but
Mm-hmm.
it was difficult for minority business firms to now move into this particular industry and to be viable players at any magnitude of importance. So again, we've become pawns, and our elected leadership
Mm-hmm.
struggle with putting together the language that would assure that that African Americans were a part of this. Now, mind
Mm-hmm.
you, we know that in the state of Maryland and a lot of other states, that the individuals who built those states and built those economies were black folk who were brought over and spent 400 years in involuntary slavery servitude, no pay, slaves, and an inability to create any legacy wealth. And you now put them out there and tell them to compete on an unlevel playing field, it's almost impossible unless your political leadership provides you the platform to level. the playing field. And so we moved to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And that industry is which is coming out. We saw it being created 10 years ago, and that was in the cannabis industry, marijuana industry, for which you have major people who spent time incarcerated, still incarcerated, with records that will not allow them to even get a federal government contract. And and also an inability to even get a simple job
Mm-hmm.
without going through urine tests.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they're locked up. When they were locked up, they were seized of any assets that they had because it was illegal. And now it's now legal. 10 years ago, when it started, the only major people at the table were individuals that didn't look like me or you.
Mm-hmm.
They were individuals who saw the time to get wealthy. So they walk into the state of Maryland and they take full advantage of the fact that we are disorganized,
Mm-hmm.
hire lobbyists to work against us.
Mm-hmm.
They put money into our political individuals' campaigns. Black individuals have gone to jail
Mm-hmm.
behind this particular effort. And at the end of the day, we're still now at step one. How do we move forward with the next step, which is the recreational marijuana? How do we do that? So, this new governor has got a large plate that he's going to have to deal with to ensure that these kind of atrocities that occurred in the community after slavery and after laws and regulations were put in place, 8A programs were put in place to level the playing field, has turned into a program that everybody else beyond two major groups, Native Americans and African Americans, who that program was built for,
Mm-hmm.
now have an inability to play on level playing fields. I talked a lot about the African American. I haven't talked about the Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
but the Native Americans are probably in your, and certainly in my background, your background, and every other African American who's been in the country since the 1700s. Do we, as a group of individual, married within races? We crossed
Mm-hmm.
over from Native American to African American, and
Mm-hmm.
we became a multitude of people. Now there were Native Americans who went to locations and they set up operations that they thought would give them an advantage, but didn't give them an advantage. You can't really isolate yourself. So while they were on reservations and they had land, they had an inability to make themselves important economic component
Mm-hmm.
because their market was limited to just with their surroundings. Now, I would say this: they've done excellent in terms of being able to survive,
Mm-hmm.
but they've taken a beating since the onslaught of individuals who came in to conquer them
Mm-hmm.
and take over all this vast real estate that is now in the US. So at one particular point in time, you're not going to correct those kind of things that were done, but at least we can start to begin to correct those for those two groups of people: black individuals who were enslaved and Native American individuals who had to suffer
Mm-hmm.
greatly. Other individuals who have come into the country got an unfair advantage to play based on our history.
Mm-hmm.
But what they had that we did not have was they had the ability to bring resources.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm coming from, let's say from India, Asia, in those countries, I got a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need to get money invested in me, I can go back to my hometown, home country, and I can have money shipped to me to
Mm-hmm.
invest and to buy. I can buy 7-Elevens. I can buy liquor stores. I can put money into creating things that you or me can't create. That's going to require a million to or more dollars in investment dollars. I can do it because my people are going to be a part of the partnership that we have that will provide me access to borrow that particular money. ESOPs,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of relationship that allows for the smart growth or
Mm-hmm.
access to capital that Black people can't get, even down to our banking structure. So we find ourselves in a position where we have to go back to other people for sources of revenue to invest in projects. What bothers me with this Quandra is that while we have a vibrant group of African Americans who have become extremely successful, they become billionaires, they do not see the need to invest that money in other Black business people who are in the community who can allow for the growth
Mm-hmm.
factor that will spur investment back into their communities from which they came.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoy the success of the fact that they are billionaires playing basketball, music, and all those other industries, but they do not see the need to invest back. Now, I said the Jewish communities are very good at doing this. They step into the community and they reinvest back.
Mm-hmm.
So they create a wealth factor that will help. Other Asian communities do this, Italian communities do this. So it's no need for us to feel that it's not a proper thing for us to do to reinvest back into ourselves. So if you have it, I challenge all of them to come back out and to create a wealth within your community from which you came from. Be really a success for the Black race. Create those kind of vehicles that's important, not just for you,
Mm-hmm.
because after you leave and die, what happens to that particular wealth if you've created nothing else to do with? What happens to that? I
Well, we
sadly look.
well we have a black bank. We have an African American bank in Baltimore.
You have one, and you have one in D.C., and you
Mm-hmm.
have one the same a similar one in the same one in Prince George County.
Mm-hmm.
Doyle Mitchell with Industrial, Harbor Bank in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's good. But the risk factors on the banks are this is there's only amount they are very, very small when you look at them when you compare them to the larger banks like the Bank of America and the Truist Bank, which have hundreds of banks and branches, and
Mm-hmm.
they have three or four. So the only thing that those banks can do is basically provide what I call safe investments into the Black community, and for them to really invest back into the Black communities with loans, it's challenging
Mm-hmm.
because investing back into business is a risky proposition. In businesses, I don't say Black business, I say business period.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find them protecting their assets by doing the something that's got capital behind it. Now, it's fine. I'll give you the money for a vehicle because I can snatch that. I can resell it. I'll give you the money for a home purchase, mortgage, because I can do that. But I can't give you money for your business because your business could fail, and then you can file a bankruptcy, and then look who's left holding the paper, the bank. And where does that bank get its money to plug that hole from when you fail?
Mm-hmm.
It gets it from the depositors. Okay. It
Okay.
has some federal funds that go there, the leverage, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially they have a greater risk because they're a smaller entity. So it's difficult for them to do the loans. And a lot of people look at that and says, yeah, they're black banks. Why don't they invest back in the black communities? But major projects that you see that take place in Baltimore City, in Prince George County, and around the state are not done using bank funds and black funds alone.
Mm-hmm.
They leverage investor funds, and they use those investor funds, and those investor funds are controlled by different individuals, different pockets have put their money out there, and they will lend that money to certain people within their community, but they might not lend that money to you or me in the
Mm-hmm.
community. So therefore, it's up to the minority community and the people in our individuals who have accumulated wealth to
Mm-hmm.
create those kind of investment vehicles, not only for themselves, but for
Mm-hmm.
others. I'll just use this term. You can see it yourself very, very, very clearly with the fact that Shaq does extremely well investing in products.
Mm-hmm.
Papa John's, Magic had the Magic Johnson Theaters. He's now doing real estate.
Mm-hmm.
He's got other projects that he's investing in. Um, you have Michael Jordan, who again on the has tons of investment dollars that's invested, but basketball investments. Uh, and we have numerous individuals who have access to a lot of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
We have got to turn that dollars into economic engines that will invest and who are not afraid of our communities in terms of putting investment dollars back into our communities. Now, what African American business people have done is they've started to create development relationships with other individuals, and they're using other individuals' dollars to invest. I know on one project that I'm working on in Prince George County, we'll find that those individuals have now enticed Magic to put some money into P3 schools,
Mm-hmm.
investment dollars, so they can park their money there. And it's a safe investment because the schools are going to pay them back with bonds that they float. It's a good investment. And they can bring up a local person that's in the state or in the county who become partners with them. So that's how you actually do that, and that's how they can become successful. Money is only a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing else beyond a tool to use to get where you to move people or to move products or to become actively involved or to create wealth, create jobs, create those things that are important in the
Mm-hmm.
community. And we got to recognize that as black individuals. But the most important piece on that is leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we know that uh, it's impossible to do this unless your political structure is walking with you
Mm-hmm.
on this particular journey. So we got a lot of work to do. But I'm optimistic that we can make it happen. And I look forward to working the next 4 years
Mm-hmm.
to see if we can make the state of Maryland uh, a better, a better state and a nice place that will provide not only homes, not only helping the homeless,
Mm-hmm.
not only employing individuals, but to create a diverse community that can be a model for the U.S. Because we're getting hit with everything. You wake up every morning, you see people getting shot.
Mm-hmm.
You see the gay clubs being trans sexual sexuals being attacked. You see Jewish individuals being attacked. You see individuals not able to go into the basic Walmarts
Mm-hmm.
without. You see the individuals in college campuses being killed. That's not the world that we create, but we can make a difference if we focus on those kind of issues that's vital to the success of the community.
Okay. So I have another question. It ties into what you were talking about, but what do you think Black businesses need to do to be invited at the table? gain political power and leverage, sustain wealth, and empower one another so that they can obtain a legacy of wealth.
Okay, I did answer some of the. Uh, but yeah, what they need to do is, as what we need to do. You said that what we need to do to be invited to the table is to create the partnerships, the leverage ourselves to show um, individuals that we can participate in RFPs when when the time is there for us to be able to participate. If it's an
Mhm.
opportunity that the state is providing for you to do, and those are some of your state savings investments that you
Mhm.
can make. If there's an opportunity to put together a powerful group, a group of individuals who can be competitive on those particular RFPs, and those RFPs then turn into leverage, and it creates both. It goes back into your community because Black people, uh, studies will show, in the smaller Black businesses, they hire Black. If you go to the city, Baltimore City, if you go to Prince George County, and you will see in those areas where even when you don't own the business, but you're managing the business,
Mhm.
whether it's white or Black owned, but if the managers are there, you'll probably see that 60 or 70% of those reflect the management of individuals who are in charge.
Mhm.
If you go into a Hispanic area and you see Hispanic managers, whether it's the managers of a McDonald's or whatever, you'll see that the majority of those individuals, or quite a few of those individuals, are from Hispanic. We pull each other up. Okay, so that works. So
Mhm.
Black businesses need to take their rightful role, and I counsel them all the time. Tonight I was on the phone before the show, counseling an individual who's been in the concrete construction business for years, and one of the most brilliant guys out there. But uh, in his particular business, the games that are being played there are very, very, very strategic. And it's like, okay, yeah, you made the money, but let me see you get it. So
Mhm.
what you do is you do the work, and then they don't pay you for doing the work as a business person.
Mhm.
So you find yourself now having to hire attorneys to fight for something that you rightly earned,
Mhm.
which is that invoice that you that the individual owes you. But if I don't have strong enough attorneys to fight them, then I can't take them to court. I can't afford to pay the attorney. And the attorney has a business to run, so
Mhm.
he cannot subsidize my business by giving me free legal services.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times, what happens with those Black businesses, that invoice completed projects
Mhm.
that's billable money I should have goes uncollected. And so what happens? The general contractor, who is not a Black business person, keeps the
Mhm.
money. And he goes through that process over and over again. Now, what started out to be a vibrant young Black individual went in business, had the prerequisite skills, thought he had enough money that he could participate, gets destroyed because his credit goes down to
Mhm.
two, and he's now out of business, destroyed, even though he has the knowledge ability. What does he do? Now he has to go back to the prime contractor and work as an employee there when he should have been a person that we had identified as a business person with business skills. So that we constantly as Black individuals run into that. So in order to be invited to the table, the state of Maryland has to spend its time
Mhm.
creating the proper vehicles. Now, I'll bring a person that you might know, but you might not know, Stanley Tucker
Mhm.
in Baltimore City, who's been doing this with MMG for years.
Mhm.
But because he doesn't have the proper capital to to put in business, he's got to fight for his financial business to stay in business. So unless he gets the proper capital, he's managing state funds to
Mhm.
invest back in Black business. He's got to minimize his risk capital on what he can actually invest in.
Okay.
So the General Assembly, while it puts money over in commerce for major businesses to participate, it has not shown a track record in history of putting that money into areas where Black individuals can access to entities like Meridian Management.
Okay.
One prime, go ahead.
I said, oh, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, so now one prime example of how he could be. There's a what he's proposing now is a tax,
Mm-hmm.
and he proposed, and he it was successful. He got it to go through, and he did it for the MMG, MGMs,
Mm-hmm.
and other major gaming facilities. That a percentage of that money would go back into creating an investment capital fund that he could provide capital to reinvest back into uh, business, minority Black businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So when he did that, they split the money. He didn't get the money. They brought in a lot of other people across the state. And the amount of money that he was fighting for himself, he ended up having to split. But he did get a piece of the action.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to have the same proposal that's going to be on the table in 2023. And that proposal this time is going to be for recreational cannabis. And what he's going to go to the table with is asking for a percentage of that money to put back into Black businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that we need that are innovative, and we need the power of the governor and the power of the senators, the power of Speaker of the Houses to say we want that to take place and to vote on it and
Mm-hmm.
to not back down when other individuals start to attack you and have it disguised not as an attack, but
Mm-hmm.
have entities that we created that were supposed to be helpful for us come to the table and tell the General Assembly that based on my facts and numbers, we don't have, there's not enough Black businesses to justify
Mm-hmm.
what you're asking for. And then you get minimized. Now, that's done quite often. And so the minority programs that we have in play are programs that even when I call them and ask them about capacity, they say, well, our analysis will show you that we don't have those. I said, your analysis only take consideration what you have already created for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can't do business in a particular county, I don't spend my time and resources there. I move to another location. I'll go into DC and do it. I'll go into the federal government, but I'm not going to spend the time, uh, as individuals said, fishing in a place where there's no fish. I
Mm-hmm.
go to where my resources are. We have to put the time, resources, and energy in developing that, and it's got to be a unified force that has the state government working using federal government funds, using private industry and state funding mechanism, and the ability to create uh, the type of vehicles that we can have those entities come to knowing that they can get resources. And that's what I did for the first beginning of my time doing nonprofits. It was creating the first business center for
Mm-hmm.
small businesses that did just that. They provide them the loans and they provide them under Governor Ehrlich's administration.
Mm-hmm.
Money leverage with federal funds to provide them the working capital, and they didn't need a lot. They just needed to get started. We created a $50 million operation transportation vehicle out of an incubator. We created one of the largest home health care
Mm-hmm.
out of an incubator. We created one of the largest security companies in the state of Maryland out of a small business incubator. But because we could provide them resource that we need, that's what we need to do. We need to invite more individuals who are not necessarily from the within the state, attract them
Mm-hmm.
here. So we have the necessary vehicles that's created by government that will entice them to come in and invest in local Black businesses Native American businesses within the state that needs to have that capital infusion and give them incentive, financial tax incentives for
Mhm.
them to move into the state of Maryland.
Okay. All right. And our next question is, why is Black media like Black USA News, Be More News, Afro, and others vital to the Black community, businesses, and churches?
It is the only resource that we have that will do a fair assessment and projections and determine uh, and knows the market that you're focused on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, White media sources have no need to spend the time developing in the Black community. Black USA News has spent years, Be More News, many years, Afro decades, and working with the community and working with the business and the churches in order to make a difference. They have a investment
Mm-hmm.
that goes not only to the media and the news, but they have an investment that was built on the back of their parents and their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the communities, they've seen Black individuals uh, created and being stereotyped from movies,
Mm-hmm.
have to fight to improve their image, not being shown at everything but who we really are. For white media to pick negative pictures of us and showcase and highlight that on 5 and 6 and 7 o'clock news, to not talk about the success of what we're doing as a community, to talk about the squeegee boys in Baltimore City there, not and versus talking about what we need to do in terms of providing them opportunity and access to become business people. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing in cannabis industry, to lock them up and not talk about taking the best minds that we have and converting that into business opportunities. There is a fair portrayal of who we are that's shown through Black USA and Be More News and the Afro. We have a vested history. We have a vested reason to invest in the history and the success of our Black people. They are extremely vital in the community to making this formula work so that we're not dependent. We're not a group of people that's dependent on federal and state subsidies. We have to have that leverage that will make it's all about how you paint the picture. You paint a picture that I'm creating a social and this is used quite often by individuals when they want to socialize or show investors that I'm investing money because it's a giveaway. I don't expect anything back. We have a picture that paints a picture that the money is not an investment. It's not going to turn me equity. It's just something that I got to do because of the social cause. But in actually every effort that's in the Black community can be turned into an economic engine that will create and stimulate and return an investment on a dollar in your communities because everybody else steps into our community. They do it and they make money. But if we create the plan and we move it forward and we don't have the image that's created, it's just something that's not going to work. So, in order for us to do that successful, we have to have the media sources. It's impossible not to have the media sources. I mean, we're in this at this particular stage that we're probably the most the most major steps have been made in social media to allow us to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at what was done before, it was kind of easy because I mean, at one time, Channel 7 or Channel 8 or whatever
Mhm.
presentation that you would either see or you'd miss is gone. We have the capacity now through the Black USA, the Be More News, Afro, all those entities to keep this front and center through social media and through shows like this. We have the ability not to depend on other individuals to highlight who we are. We
Mhm.
have the ability to call people on the carpet based on their track record of not performing. We have the ability to move political people out of position who are
Mhm.
not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's one of the things I look forward to doing in 2023 is to identify those impediments that are just that, who don't really believe in the black people or the black economy. They believe in something that's for them. That they are you have a greedy perspective, and so they have a tendency unknowingly to sell out their people just for access, personal access and personal wealth. And the end, it doesn't pay. And so it's just a repetition of what started out in the 60s as programs that were supposed to correct those problems have dragged in to 2022. Okay, that's 40, almost 60 years, close to 60 years,
Mhm.
trying to correct something that has been affecting us since slavery.
Mhm.
And at this point in time, I'm just anxious to see what we can do in this new social experiment that we'll have with a new uh, leadership in the state of a African American governor at the helm of the state and see what we can do as a team. And we'll force our political players to come on and move up the step where you guys are on the
Mhm.
media side. And so for us all to in return commit ourselves to progress, political process, progress, business progress, social
Mhm.
progress, all those things that are so importantly needed. And you know it because you work every day in those environments and you deal with that in housing issues, health issues across the board. Things. I had a conversation today that I we talked about four individuals that were in a church
Mhm.
funerals, and of those four individuals who died and were buried this week
Mhm.
locally in Prince George County, none of them had insurance money.
Mhm.
And the rational reason for that is not unusual. Maybe they had the money to buy food and they had the money to pay insurance.
Mhm.
But that's where we are as a community. So we pay for what we can afford. Now, every day I struggle to go there, and I don't have enough money to pay insurance policy. What are you going to do? You're going to pay insurance policy, or you can put gas in your car? You're going to do this. But because those individuals were young, they didn't reach an age where death was an issue as far as they were concerned. They're optimistic, but they're
Mhm.
dead now. So, and they are dead, and they don't have insurance. So who picks up the cost for the funeral? Okay, somebody's got to pay it, or either you got to have a mortician who says, "Okay, let me absorb it," but if you keep doing that, he's going to be out of business.
Right.
So we talked about a structure that would create a plan that would have a life insurance attached to a cell phone.
Mhm.
So in return, your cell phone bill would or each month would have, or young folk, and that's a person young enough to carry a phone, would
Mhm.
carry an insurance policy attached to it. So in other words, your bill that you pay $40 a month will be $45 a month. $5 of that $40 would be an insurance policy.
Mhm.
If something happened to you, you would have money to cover a burial at a minimum, or you'd be able to take that money that you accumulate through your phone and you could then move it into a policy that could pay you later on if you didn't die. It could be
Mhm.
converted to where eventually it's a policy that you can invest in. But unless we do some things that are drastically different in terms of investing into our community, into our people, we have an issue. And I challenge anybody there to tell me that that's not possible because I see very few people who don't have a cell phone.
That's true.
Very, very few people, and it's unfair for poor people because they can't afford to have insurance policy on their children
Mhm.
to worry about after tragic incidents burying them with no money.
Mhm.
If they have to bury them with no money to carry that debt of that funeral when they already have more
Mhm.
debt than they can handle. And now, because they have that, if they don't have anyone to help them, that puts them in a position where they're even more vulnerable. And they never, and you'll never, it's perpetual burying them into poverty. So those are the kind of things that we kind of have to think outside of the box
Mhm.
with improving the conditions of our people. And it's just not the African American population that I was presenting this to today. I'm presenting it to these young kids who are white kids too,
Mhm.
who, if they're shot and killed, it's just that we're being targeted more
Mhm.
in terms of our locations and the fact that um, our circumstances,
Mhm.
not that I'm involved in it, but the fact that I happen to be in a Walmart store in an African American area and somebody comes in, I happen to be in Southeast DC and I happen to be on the street and a stray bullet comes and hits me and kills me. I wasn't involved in it. I wasn't involved in the nightclubs, but I'm in the nightclubs and I walk in and thought it would be okay.
Mhm.
I didn't have insurance, but I didn't think I'd need insurance in order to go to a nightclub. But that night I
Mhm.
did. Okay, so I didn't even have a chance to say, okay, maybe I'm going to be in a risky situation. Let me do this. I didn't have a chance.
Right.
But now that I'm in the circumstances, I'm no longer in the circumstance. I'm dead.
Mhm.
But but families are finding them in circumstances that they have to figure out how do we adjust? How do we take care of these things within our communities? How do we help ourselves? So that's the main things that I would like to see us focus on. I always have major issues like I 495 to I 270 corridor. I think that's about a $30 billion development project
Mhm.
that's planned for the Montgomery County corridor all the way up to Frederick County, Gaithersburg.
Mhm.
It's putting in toll highways. But if you look at the dollars and who's involved in the projects, there's no provisions in that on that project for an inclusion of of African Americans. I look at the red line in Baltimore City that should be built and developed
Mhm.
there. That's not. We need to focus on that. It creates jobs and it's investment in the city and it will improve the city. I look at transportation corridors like the ones that go from Prince George County to Charles County, which is a black county.
Mhm.
And I go, come on, these are the kind of projects that we can do. I look at the cannabis
Mhm.
and and it somehow becomes something that we have to focus on. And it's
Mhm.
going to be our responsibility to make those things happen. And hopefully we can do this on political cipher. Uh,
Hopefully, yes. So I'm looking forward to that.
we're looking forward to making that happen.
Yes. Now, Joe, this is our last question for the evening. What are
Okay.
you thankful for this Thanksgiving season?
Yeah, look, I'm just thankful to be alive
Okay.
uh, in this season because I have my health, I have
Mhm.
my strength, and I've gone through about 3 or 4 surgeries over the last 5 or 6 years, and at any of those particular surgeries, I mean, I was down for 30, sometimes sometimes 30, 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to bounce back and be healthy to
Mm-hmm.
do. And I am thankful that I had my capacity to think, which is vital
Mm-hmm.
uh, to existence, because your health, ability to think, is something that none of us. I'm thankful that this Thanksgiving I don't have to worry about food. I've been even in my position. People say, you haven't. Yes, I've been in positions where I the cupboards were bare.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in positions where I didn't have a vehicle to do that. I've been in all those positions that we all are in, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful that I'm not. I'm thankful that I can help other people
Mm-hmm.
here, and that's vitally important. But I'm even more thankful that I can see a a something on the horizon in the state of Maryland. I'm thankful that I can see a governor who's committed to making Maryland a better place. So, with that, my kids are great. They're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
My family's great.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing well. My friends are great. They're doing well. And the state of Maryland, I think, in 2023 will be greater. And that's what I'm thankful for. And Quandra, I'm grateful for your recent friendship. Let me put that out.
Well, I'm thankful for family. I'm thankful for my health. There's so many people. I'm thankful for being employed because so many people aren't. Especially during this holiday season, so many people are homeless that don't have a home. I have a home. I'm thankful for Donnie, our publisher and our creator of Black USA News and Be More News. Thankful for this platform, and for Political Cipher, and the fact that we can talk about Black issues, Black empowerment, Black leadership, and just Black love, because it is important that we first begin to love ourselves, because it seems like it's like a we want it's like we have this crab effect that we want to keep pulling each
Mhm.
other down because we don't want the next person to be ahead of the game. I'm thankful for our new relationship, our friendship, and I'm also thankful for the fact of Black USA's network family. I just want to wish everybody a safe Thanksgiving, but I also want to thank you and wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to our next show next week, where we'll be collaborating with a public was it Leon Thomas
Okay.
production crew. Um, and we're gonna have some new things happening in the horizon. Looking for new um, senators and hopefully our surprise guest in a couple of weeks to come on and talk to us about what her platform is and her new role. On that note, I want to say thank you, Joe, for joining us today and having a conversation with us about you and educating us on so many different things and so many different roles that you played in bringing us to a point where we're having our first African American governor and our first Asian American lieutenant governor in the state of Maryland. So, on that note, I am proud to be a member of the global majority. And on that note, thank you and have a great evening. Goodbye.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.